I never imagined a simple office party would open my eyes so completely. My name's Daniel, 38 years old, and I've been married to Emily for 12 years. Our life has been calm, sometimes too predictable, but I've always believed in consistency, responsibility, and putting my family first. I work in IT. The job isn't glamorous, but it's steady, pays well, and gives us a peaceful, comfortable life. Emily, on the other hand, is ambitious, intelligent, and still so beautiful that one look from her can quiet my whole world. That Friday night, Emily invited me to her company's annual party. I rarely attend such events. I'm not the social type, and the idea of mingling with her colleagues, most of whom I didn't know, wasn't thrilling. But Emily smiled and said softly, "It'll be nice. Come with me." And even though a part of me wanted to stay home, I agreed. Supporting her mattered. That's what love means, showing up even when it's uncomfortable. The party was held in a fancy hotel lounge. Laughter echoed, glasses clinked, and soft music floated through the air. I stayed close to Emily, shaking hands, nodding politely, and offering smiles when required. I noticed groups forming, the kind filled with inside jokes and exaggerated laughter. I didn't mind. I wasn't there to blend in. I was there for Emily. Then he arrived. Mark, her colleague. Tall, confident, the kind of man who looked like life had always gone his way. The moment his eyes met mine, I sensed it. That smug, assessing look that sized me up and dismissed me in the same breath. I didn't know his title or his importance, and honestly, I didn't care. But the way he regarded me said it all. He saw me as insignificant. Soon enough, he approached, drink in hand, a smirk playing on his lips. "So, this is the guy who keeps Emily entertained at home, huh?" he said, his tone dripping with mock amusement. Then, leaning in, he added, "Tell me, are you always this quiet? Or do you just stand there like a plant?" The laughter around us dimmed. My chest tightened, but I forced a calm smile. A slow, burning anger began to stir. Not loud or reckless, but cold, deliberate. I felt Emily tense beside me, her hand brushing mine, silently pleading for me to let it go. But I didn't flinch. I stayed still, letting the quiet fire build inside. I let my thoughts wander through every moment that had built our marriage. The late nights Emily stayed at work while I cooked dinner and helped with homework. The times I drove across town to fix something, the countless small efforts that went unseen. And now here was this man, a stranger, bold enough to mock me in front of her colleagues. The arrogance was almost impressive. It revealed him completely. Shallow, self-satisfied, and unaware of the quiet force he had just awakened. I smiled again, slower this time, locking eyes with him. "Mark, right?" I asked evenly. "You seem to mistake noise for worth. Being loud doesn't make you important, and putting others down doesn't make you smart. Maybe check how your coworkers see you before you start judging anyone else." The crowd nearby fell silent. Heads turned. I stood there calm, steady, every muscle relaxed, but every thought sharp. Mark's laugh broke the tension, thin and nervous. "Ha! I was just kidding, man," he said, waving his hand as though that erased the insult. I simply nodded, letting the quiet hang long enough for him to feel the weight of it. He didn't realize what kind of man he was dealing with. Turning to Emily, I softened my voice. "Don't worry about him," I said. "Some people make noise because they don't understand what it means to stand for something real." She nodded, eyes shimmering with a mix of relief and pride. In that moment, I realized respect doesn't come from anger. It comes from composure, presence, and knowing your own worth. The rest of the night moved in gentle waves, polite conversations, forced laughter, curious glances. Mark kept his distance after that, and Emily stayed close. But inside, I felt something new, a quiet pride born from restraint. I hadn't raised my voice. I hadn't stooped to his level. Yet the room had shifted. On the drive home, Emily reached for my hand. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. You didn't let him get to you. I smiled, but what I felt ran deeper than pride. It was understanding, the realization that control is power and composure is strength. That night wasn't about a party anymore. It was about clarity, self-respect, and boundaries. The next morning, I replayed the scene in my head. Mark had been so sure of his superiority, so blinded by arrogance. But he'd underestimated one thing: experience, self-worth, and the calm that comes from truly knowing yourself. Life doesn't test your rage. It tests your restraint. And restraint, when mastered, can be far more devastating than anger. While Emily returned to work Monday, I stayed home reflecting. I thought of every small act that shaped me into someone unshaken by ridicule. The nights of support, the weekends fixing what was broken, the patience during her hard days. Those weren't chores, they were investments in character. And now they had become the armor that kept me grounded. A few days later, I received an email from one of Emily's coworkers. Daniel, just wanted to say you handled yourself admirably. Some people forget what respect looks like. Your calmness said everything. I smiled. True validation doesn't come from applause. It comes from quiet acknowledgement by those who understand integrity. Even Emily seemed changed. Lighter, softer. Maybe it was admiration, maybe comfort, but something between us felt renewed. The distance that work and life had created seemed to dissolve. We laughed more, talked longer, reconnected in ways we hadn't in years. It reminded me why we built this life together in the first place. Sometimes it takes a small confrontation to reveal a larger truth. As for Mark, I never needed to face him again. People like him always underestimate quiet strength. But the office dynamic shifted. Those who once whispered now greeted me with respect. And even subtle glances showed that Emily and I were seen differently, as a team. It wasn't revenge. It was balance restored. The natural consequence of arrogance meeting composure. That evening, Emily and I sat on the porch, the night air cool and still. You know, she said, resting her head on my shoulder, I've never been more sure about us. I chuckled. Funny how a little chaos brings clarity. Over the next few weeks, I noticed my mindset evolve. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned through integrity and boundaries. Those who mock or underestimate others eventually face the quiet collapse of their own pride. Mark faded from our orbit, his words losing meaning. And I felt peace, steady, grounded, complete. Because I hadn't needed to fight. I had simply stood. Some lessons arrive without noise, delivered in calm dignity. That night taught me mine. True strength doesn't shout. It simply stands unshakable, patient, and utterly sure of its worth.